I am positively surprised. I would never have thought about Samlink in this context.
That is honorable to hear.
It is.
Yes.
Because I am Monika Liikamaa. I'm a recovering bank CIO. So I've been part of building banks and running banking business. So I was part. So I wouldn't call a techie because I tried to be more business oriented. But I am actually a developer by training, and then I was in the telco industry, and then I started up a business in 2006 and ended up as a test manager in S Group who wanted to build a bank. So I was part of building the bank from scratch, the whole infrastructure. But it wasn't from scratch, as we did migrate almost 1 million customers from legacy, very legacy systems, and really built up everything. And then fast forward, we purchased the Citibank lending business. I was part of that migration, and then things started to become a bit boring. I was never part of choosing the vendors that S Group chose, and I thought about it a little bit, like, why did they choose the ones they chose? But probably back in those days, so in 2006 and 7, Kroski was a good option because Tapiola Bank had chosen them, and it was kind of something new and different compared to the other players. So I think that's the thing. But what I did learn, like now looking back to those days, and when I was a bank CIO, and especially after we went live and everything started to become business as usual, I really hated the business people. Because they had these stupid ideas. They had no understanding of the complexity of the infrastructure, the cost it was to run it, and the resources it took. And they always came with these stupid ideas and like bullshit ROI calculations. But I was wrong. And I remember my CEO, we had a strategy day, and he was a bit upset, to put it in a nice way, that in Finnish, like, Monika, ei IT vittu tätä pankkia johda, was probably the phrase he used. So greetings to Pekka. And I was like, obviously it does. So in English it means, like, IT doesn't run this fucking bank. And you can Google the other word. But he was right and I was wrong. Yeah. We did end up splitting our ways, not because of this discussion, but I think after then going to Kroski, building a lot of stuff from scratch again on the card and payment side, and we did Elisa wallet, etc. We did a lot of awesome stuff, but like a very Finnish way, a little bit too soon. Like we did NFC payments, contactless, and the only actually place that was contactless enabled was Veruska, not a high-end restaurant in Kallio area. So that didn't go very well, but the tech was awesome. And then I wanted to start scaling. The owners of Kroski didn't, and then I knew I had to leave. And then I left, and as I have a lot of children and a lot of debt on the house, and I'm not married to yet a wealthy guy. I'm not going to change the husband, but I'm hoping get wealthy soon enough, or me. And then went to Actia and run some projects, and at the same time had a pretty close visibility of what it looks like when a core transformation doesn't go as planned, to put it in a nice way. And I think the big problem was exactly this, that everyone did it as an IT project. And that's when you come to this fact that IT is there to, at best, run what you have with good quality, high SLAs and compliance. But very seldom do they have the capability, because of what they look at every day, to actually transform anything. And I often talk about us being like a taxi driver, because I used to be that. My father was a taxi, but that's what we are as Enfuce. We really enable our customers to get to where they need to go. But in order for that to happen, they actually need to know where the fuck they're going.
Yes.
So if like it's not like 3 o'clock in the night and you are 3 promille drunk, you need to actually know it. And I think that's a skill. So I'm very happy to see this, because I think one of the biggest challenges I have today, I have many challenges, but I think one big, when it comes to incumbent players, like people who actually have customers and money, which is a good thing, is that you send out RFIs. It's horrible. Like it comes 400. I think there are around 3 or 4 different type of RFI Excels circulating in Europe or probably globally, because it's the same questions, and it's around interest calculation, reminder and collection feature, and stuff like that. That doesn't mean anything. And that's the bigger problem. So if you think about how you spend your time, you get an consultancy at best. At worst, it's your IT department. Some random poor guy needs to send out this random Excel that they found somewhere to a bunch of random vendors. And then there is no idea why they're doing it, what is the timeline, what they want to achieve. And then next comes the RFP, which is like, yeah, we want this because you tick the boxes, but we want it cheaper. And I think that's how you really set up for failure. So I really like that. And as I said, kudos to you guys. So a lot of good stuff has happened. I haven't been very active in the Finnish market because you guys have a tendency not to buy from me. But you can change it, and that's okay. I'm open for business. Because we have a lot of awesomeness in this country. And I do think that one of the problems also in a mindset perspective is that players in Finland think that anything coming outside of Finland is somehow better. Not true. And also the fact that you're competing with each other, also not true, because nobody actually gives a shit about the Finns. But when something bigger comes in, then it's a losing game. So I think really the collaboration is key. And that means that we can collaborate across many different items. So really like this picture, which I would never have thought coming into this meeting. So thank you, and looking forward to us starting now to collaborate, as I know you have at least something going, which is a good thing.
Absolutely, yes.
So now maybe then transcending into my presentation, and I was asked to come in and talk a little bit about what we do and about this build versus buy, and of course thinking about what type of audience do I have here. So please feel free. I know it's not easy, but trust me, there are no stupid questions. And I will give you an awesome answer. So you can ask pretty much whatever you like. And I have some people targeted. So if you don't ask, that means that you suck. So a little bit about Enfuce. So I said, founded Enfuce back in 2016 because I was working at that time at Actia running the card business. Or we started first to doing a certain project and then ended up restructuring that part of the business, but was really kind of not satisfied with the providers, because probably also a lot of due to how things were structured, everything was built up that it has to take 2 years at minimum. It will cost you like $500,000 just to say hello, and at best it might go live, probably not. And when it does, it's probably outdated anyway. So I think that was the mindset, and everyone was okay with it, because that was just how it was. And then you had been there seeing, like for example, with S-Bank, that I know that many banks laughed at us and they tried to also to boycott us, putting us in this maksusaarta, which was very funny for us because the money flowed internally, and the biggest customers we have was of course the biggest co-op, so it didn't really matter. But going into Enfuce, it was all about there has to be a way to do this better, faster, and globally scalable. And I do remember really looking into how do we scale globally, and also the fact that didn't have any money. How do we put it up in an infrastructure that doesn't cost millions to run? Because I do remember when I was at S-Bank, and I needed to get one additional test environment for a certain project. It cost me 500,000 and it took 6 months, because first we needed to order IBM hardware, we needed to test it, we needed to have a certain skill set. Today it takes milliseconds to shoot up a whole production environment. Actually, we do it every morning, because the way we have built our infrastructure is that it kills off and rebuilds up, so that we know that all the servers and everything are running as they should be. And as such, we promise 99.999 as uptime. And I could do more, but then it will stress my tech guys out, because then they start like doing bells and whistles, and they don't understand the liability aspect and caps and stuff like that. But that's my life. So then we really went into building the best card issuer processor. So we are built to service banks with the processing capability. So I was used to working with players, of course, like Kroski, Nets, Nexi, Tietoevry. And how should I say? I knew that there would be a better way. And I think ST1 project really showed us the way. And it was all built to focus on how do we get to where we need to go. This is the business, this is the value that the product needs to bring to our business. And then it was more about how do we actually solve it. So what I did first was that I went in and helped Mika Anton and Kim Viu set the business strategy. And while I was doing that, I was like, shit, is it okay if I make a proposal? So back in April, so I went there in February 2016, started to do what you did, maybe not that structured, but really understanding what would the business look like? Why would a card be relevant? Why would you need a license so you could take the credit risk? Like, what's the business value? And when that was clear, and they say, yes, we're going to do it. Now we're going to do an RFP. I was like, okay, cool. Is it okay if I make a proposal? And they were, yeah, sure, whatever. And that's how Enfuce became. Because I said, this is something we want to do. And we did. So like from the day that we actually pitched how we would do it, and I know that there were players like the usual suspects plus CGI, etc. on the table, and we won it. I do think that one of the biggest reasons why we won it, of course, was me. No, but probably also the fact that we went cloud. We were the first one to go cloud, and it was because it gave the scalability. Because we knew that we would need to migrate, whatever that means, onboard, take out from various legacy systems, 600,000 customers. How do you do it in a way that you earn money whilst doing it? And that's what we started to do. And I also remember myself being like in 2016, like, no bank has ever gone cloud. That's insane. And then everyone, but that is the only way, because we don't have the money to do the on-prem stuff. It will never scale. We can never build a high availability infrastructure we want to have, and the way it's going to scale. So then it was like, okay, if that's the only way, nobody has done it, let's do it. And so we did, and we took it to the Finnish FSA and got it approved. And we were the ones who actually got the first version of the financial addendum. That is us. And actually now, when we closed SEB as a customer, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later, SEB Embedded or SX or whatever they were called, Christopher Malmer, he was like, this financial addendum that you have, it's a one-pager. That's really weird, because all the other ones, they are like 15 pages. But ours was the OG. It was the original. So it said, this is the process if the FSA needs to do an on-prem visit, and it's applicable globally. So I did update it, and I got this 15 pages. There's a lot of much more text, but I had that one, and I think that is a game changer. And I also wanted to talk about, of course, today it's not about if cloud, it's about how fast cloud, because of the capability it brings and the burden it takes off your shoulders to give time to focus on your actual business requirements. But I also remember back in 2017, I organized Enfuce Summit, and I had a speaker there from Nordea, Jussi Muurikainen, and Jussi was like, yeah, we are an IT company with a bank license. We are an IT company with a bank license. I was like, oh, fuck, that's so wrong. Like anyone can be an IT company, but very few can become a bank. And banking is all about risk management. And I mean, that's it. You are managing people's data and money. What else is more important? Yeah, maybe health. So I think those are the things. So really understanding who you want to be. And we really see now that the niche players, like the neobanks that came along, they were very focused on solving a certain problem. But of course, with that, when they didn't take compliance maybe as seriously, what we really can see is that they are defaulting or having massive problems. And it's mostly due to anti-money laundering regulations, so not being able to actually make sure that they do the stuff that they need to do. So I think those are really important, and I'm kind of as the old banker in me comes to life. Now is the time for the banks to regain that field. I mean, you have the trust, you have the reputation for now, because there are still customers my age and a bit older alive. But unless we start transforming and changing, like my children who are 24, 22, 16 and 15, they don't care. They're like, I need my money. Where can you put money? And I was like, yeah, well, check your S Bank or your Nordea, because it's easy to like just see where the money goes and do the stuff. So they will not be as loyal unless it works and gives them value. So I do think that banks have a lot of value, but there are a lot of challenge in articulating it in a way that it actually makes sense. And what is often distracted is that you go into a compliance mindset, or it's not a mindset, it's an excuse. Either you say that we would do that and that, but it's the compliance department, or we would do that and that, but it's the IT department. Problem is, because you don't have them at the table in the early phase, they will do what they're told to, which is to destroy you. But that's a fact of life. Like if I look at the Aktia case, where we actually did an agreement with Reitan, so R-kioski, and we put out a MasterCard gift card, a prepaid gift card that were sold at the R-kioski. I went first to the FSA and got it approved. Then I took it to the bank's compliance, because for them, they are measured on zero risk. Zero risk means that you don't do anything, and that becomes a problem. So if you take them to the table and you measure them in a way that is about mitigating and managing, I do think that there's a lot of things to be gained, and those are the things that we work a lot with. So understanding these constraints back in 2017, realized that I'm going to go bankrupt soon, because no bank will ever have the balls to buy from me. So then we started pivoting, or focusing a little bit to different segments. Today, 8 years in, we have around 54 customers, and we are also starting to get banks. And of course, what we've done is we've upscaled ourselves, so we are an issuer ourselves. So for example, Alisa Pankki's cards in Finland are actually issued by us. So they are issued by Enfuce License Services, and of course processed by us, because Alisa has understood that it's not their core business to understand payment scheme compliance, fraud prevention, etc. So they have bought that, but they want the cards because it's a user interface. And of course, for me, that it took 7 years for S-Bank to get the Apple Pay, it's embarrassing. But anyways, that wasn't me. So, yeah, this video, are you sure? Cut. Yeah, but I think here again with SEB, it was a long or we are only in the beginning of the journey. And there we have a joint collaboration with Thought Machine. So Thought Machine are on the core bank side, and we are on the card issuing side. So I do like the concept that when you are a big enough incumbent with the challenges of, do you have the courage to take the risk and actually change? They have done it in a good way. I need to throw a bit of Finns under the bus here, because I remember at OP back in the days, I think it was 2017, where there was this accelerator programs. And I remember Christian Luoma and I was at stage at some event, probably my last one in Finland, and now 6 years later, I'm back. I asked him, like, okay, cool, you have had these accelerator programs, you have paid consultancies to run them, you have had a lot of awesome startups pitching. How many have you had? And he said, like, we have had 10 accelerators and 100 startups in that process. I was like, cool. How many are live in production? 0. And it's because compliance and IT procurement were never part of those accelerator programs, which meant that they were doomed to fail. And when I realized that, I said, we're never going to participate because it's a waste of time. And I think here, as a gentle reminder, when you see the light and you want to start working with players like ourselves, be fast, be as fast as you can be, and be open and be focused on getting the job done. Because what you will do is that you will use up the only thing of value that the startup has, which is their time. And when you don't pay them for that, you will be part of their destruction. So that's what I always said to my co-founder colleagues. If you have a bullshitting banker on the other side who is really excited, look who they are, look what mandate do they have, and ask them, are you seriously going to buy from me? Because otherwise, it's going to kill you. And I think, so that's like a gentle request. There's a massive opportunity for collaboration, but please don't kill your counterparty with your legacy ways of working. And of course, I'm not going to go into this. We have also the build versus buy stuff, or we have webinars and so forth. So more than happy for you to download this. But I think, again, as Paul said in a good way, like, you can choose. If you really think that building from scratch, that you know IT best. Another fun fact, again from OP, and I don't know if there's anyone from OP here, but back in the days, Anders Stenback was running some part of OP, and he came to me, Monika, I have a problem. My problem is that as I have a lot of AWS engineers, and as soon as they get certified to something, they leave. How are you retaining? And I said, yeah, because I pay them less, but they are part of building something that can scale, and it's interesting. So meaning, like, again, like if you build from scratch, and I don't know, but I've heard rumors that Nordea has still 100 COBOL engineers. I don't know if that's true, but I do know another customer of ours that is in a transformation program. Their challenge is that they have actually people that have retired a couple of times, and they have had to hire them back because they don't know what's been built, and it's such a mess. So I think, again, focusing on understanding where you want to be, and then, as Paul said, having that legacy analysis and understanding what works, what don't we touch now, and don't even touch it, let it die, but come with something better. And then look like, oh my God, we have actually this small component here, which is actually a switch. And if that dies, and it's only 2 guys who are like wanting to go retire, and the wife is bitching, kind of, that's a red flag. Fix that. Those are the things that you need to look into. But there's a lot of good partners that can fix. What this means is that I'm going to jump a bit because I'm starting to get a bit constrained with time. But this is the problem. When I founded Enfuce with Denise, and she's more of a banker than me, so she's been on the banking side and payments and Swiss and EBA and LABA stuff. And I told her, whatever we do, tech will never be the problem. It is always the people. It is always the people. So if you don't know how to buy, and probably you don't because that's not your core business. And then also, if you think that that's your core business and you are in procurement and you've been at the same place for 5 years, you don't know how to buy because the world has changed a lot. So you need to upskill. So I think that's also a very key important side, a skill set, how to actually buy stuff that enables you to get to where you're going. And I think those are the key things that all of you need to think about, because that will make you unique, because what you know is your business. When you know your business in a way that you can articulate the uniqueness or the USPs or the things you want to really be good at or fast at or low transaction cost or whatever it is, when you know your business case, then you will be able to partner up and buy stuff from people who actually know how to get it done. But before you don't do that, it's going to be challenging. Because also then, when you go in to the transformation journey, shit will hit the fan. It's a fact of life. Things will go wrong. I'm like, you have serious problems with like construction and stuff internally, so don't quit your day job. But I think in general, it will go wrong. And in those scenarios, you need to have the people who you trust. And trust takes time. I know we have one customer where we are currently a big customer in this kind of onboarding, migration, whatever you want to call it, transformation phase. And what happened was that in the initial phase where we did the scoping and the agreements and like kicking off, then half of the people on their side changed. And that's painful because, of course, they never chose us. And they came from a bit more maybe legacy mindset. So it was more like, I need to understand the details of this interest calculation, posting date and how it affects the da-da-da. And then you're like, we've all, okay. And then it's, again, you need to manage that. Those things will happen. And when those people change on a high enough, it's just like, smile and wave and take one for the team. But I do really think that it's really important that when you build stuff together, you need to have partnerships where you trust that when things go wrong, everyone will refocus. Because as Paul said again, things will change. World changes really fast. It changes so fast that you think it doesn't change at all, and which is not true. Like for me, AI, for example, is the best thing ever. I mean, like it's the best employee ever. It learns fast. It doesn't cost a lot of money. It doesn't bitch, and it works 24/7. So AI is coming for you. So I'm sure we can, but like see it as a potential tool. Use those things also going forward. But I do think that the biggest risk is not doing anything at all. So it is a learning curve. Start building stuff, start doing. And personally, I don't like this failing forward because I don't like the word fail, because we have a tendency that we, especially Finns, if we use these negatives, it becomes a reality. So what you talk about tends to happen. But the whole thing is really about the learning curve, like real learning. And I do think like OKQ8, which is one of our big customers, their biggest challenge is to be relevant in a world where fossil fuels, which is their core business, will go away. And for them, adding cards, building loyalty is critical now, because time will come. Combustion engines won't be allowed. EV charging stations will be needing to understand EMV. There's a lot of potential happening also from a sustainability aspect that you could be part of if you decide to embrace the potential. But it's also interesting because that's why we talk a lot about partnerships, that we are a partner, we are not a vendor. Because I also think that as soon as when I heard someone from our customer say that, but you're a vendor, then I know that they are putting us in the wrong box. And then they are only looking at, yeah, you're a vendor. Can I see your API documentation? Can I test your sandbox? Here are the guys who are going to do this and that. And it's like, not a problem, but it's not relevant. It is all about the business cases. So yeah, the future is trust and speed if you have the courage, if you're brave enough. Otherwise, the good thing is that you will get either fired or retired. Time will take care of the problem anyway. So thank you for having me, and open to any questions.
Any questions before we move on to the panel? No?
No.
I would like to say that was a fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so awesome.
An eye-opening. I actually think it's been fantastic to follow the journey of Enfuce, where you've come from, where you're going, and the growth. World domination, definitely in front of you.
Always.
Yes. So
anything less is boring.
no, I agree.
But
we feel the same about Sumlink, right?
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
yes.
But as I said, it's going to be interesting, and I do think there's a lot of collaboration that we could actually do that would benefit the whole ecosystem. Because I think, again, being born out of this country from a compliance perspective and a reputational perspective, that's why we talk a lot about like Enfuce, happiness built in, Aurora Borealis, because we are the cleanest, less corrupt. And I think the problem with us Finns is like, but I mean, like, embrace it. It is a strength. And it's our responsibility to also teach our younger generation that it is a massive strength. We've done a lot of good stuff in this country that we should be proud of and really export it. So really looking forward to getting more funding and, stuff.